Over the last few episodes, we've spent a lot of time mentioning my older work, especially the illustrations from the Singularian, where everything I made felt a lot darker and heavier, and perhaps it even carried more weight in terms of storytelling because it was literally part of an interactive illustrated book series. So today, I thought it'd be interesting to take that a step further. I've pulled together some old footage from way back when, and I do want to give you a little heads up on that, because today I still don't have a clue what I'm doing with video editing, but back then it truly was a massacre. So please don't mind the old footage, as it will show you all kinds of inconsistent follow me and subscribe images. But the reason I dusted off these videos is because I thought it'd be cool to chat about art development, and with that, the development as the artist. And I'm pretty sure that my good friend and fellow artist MK Gibson knows exactly what years of process looks and feels like too. So this episode is really about growth and about how your skills evolve and how your mindset can change, and the things you only learn by putting in the miles. So let's rewind a bit and see where this all started. Welcome back to another Butcher Shop. I feel like I want to wait for you to say something about the intro.
It was good. I mean, here's the thing. I can't complain. Short, sweet, to the point, under like 40 seconds, I can't.
Well, it was more than a minute, dude.
It didn't feel like it. I'll put it this way. It didn't feel like it. Well, once you minus all that scribbly,
No, for some reason, I thought, maybe this is just trauma response. I thought you were going to say something about how long the intro was, and you walked your dog, and you did everything in between. You cleaned the house. But no, you did not. So,
I am not. You don't put me in a box, woman.
How you doing, sir?
I'm good today. Always busy, always working, ever onward, ever forward. That's a little shout out to people who actually like Old Gods of Appalachia. All nine, probably none of your Netherlands people know that particular podcast. So
I don't even know what this
doesn't matter. It is an amazing podcast. It's an anthology horror story that uses a lot of the East Coast of the United States. We have two major mountain ranges in the United States, the West Rockies and the Appalachians. And, there's some other ones, mixed in there, but these are the two big ones. They basically create the V and the Tornado Valleys in the middle. Anyway, the mountains and the hills of Appalachia run along the East Coast, and it's very old, and they're old mountains, and a lot of immigrants who came over from the European immigrants came here, and there's a lot of old magic, myth, and fear that goes along with those mountains, and this podcast kind of blends that together. So basically the things that live under the mountains, dark things that are never meant to be seen, mixed with the growing things of the green and the goodness of her in battle, and how that possesses the lives of people. And it's an anthology series that goes back to like 1910s, 1920s, and it's a really cool short vignette style of no episode's over 30 minutes long, or maybe 40 minutes tops. And it's these just weird tales. It doesn't. I'm really gilding the lily. We have nothing to do with this podcast, but it's just I'm a big fan of that show and the way they tell a story.
I can tell.
Yeah. Oh God, it's so good. So
I somewhere deep inside a bell does ring when I hear you talk about this. So you might have actually mentioned it before, but I completely forgot about it.
I wouldn't listen to me either. I get it.
Exactly. So. I have this filter now. I filtered the bullshit.
Oh, good. It is. I sensitive the bullshit. Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of bullshit, look at this illustration.
I know, man. Look at you.
Oh man, I figured it'd be fun to embrace the nostalgia, but I'm looking at this and I kind of cringe inside.
Here's the thing. I wouldn't, because again, you look back on this. I've seen you. I do some of you seen. Blah, 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 blah. It's a morning and I'm hyper. Sorry.
Try again.
I've seen some of your speed painting in the past, only with color, and you still have. I can still see the same process, but I'm seeing the mind is still there. It's just there's a refinement now versus what was then. This is a little bit more like kind of throwing it on there and then cleaning it up afterwards. Kind of like how most people do. Now you have a little bit more forethought. You have a better vision of what it's going to be beforehand, so it's less slapdash now. Not that it's slapdash here, but I'm not saying that in a negative way. But
no, but it feels more felt and maybe not maybe a bit less thought of. And I think. Sure. Over time, that process has sort of reversed on itself. But so the first thing that I actually thought when I was going through these videos was, ha, bitches, you see my process hasn't changed since the era of AI. I've been doing this whole segment thing since way before AI was even a fucking dream. So here you go.
Nice.
I mean, yeah, I can't make it more clear, guys. I am a human, but it's interesting because I never really thought about how I did what I did until people started accusing me, like a couple of months ago, of using AI.
Right.
And now that I look at this stuff is from 2019 or 2020, so that's like 6 years old by now, and nothing of what I've done or what I'm doing has changed. And I kind of jumped when you like from happiness when you said, I see the same brain, just more refined right now. Yeah, literally nothing has changed in the way I work. It's just gotten a little bit better, I guess.
Well, it is. I mean, it's a creative process. Like, like I'll use the writing world. You start writing with passion, and then that is met with you start trying to like a little bit of planning. Like the pants or the plotter kind of thing. Seat of the pants, or you're plotting everything out. But you're trying to go from a place of like, I'm trying to tell this story. I'm trying to do whatever with a sense of emotion to it. But you're like anything, you're trying things on to see what feels right. Some people, I can always tell when someone is like kind of a novice at their craft in the world of writing. And this is no disrespect to young writers, because my wife teaches creative writing for this at her high school. And some of these kids are amazing writers, but when I listen to them or like, see their work, you can always tell who's still uncomfortable because they try to use too many descriptive words. They think that by writing a like not genre fiction, but more a literary fiction type of world, that by adding a lot of adverbs, a lot of descriptors, a lot of these
adverbs everywhere.
Well, it's not just I mean, that's half of romanticy. No offense,
that's true,
fans, but Jesus, but it's like they said adverbedly. I hate that, but no, but there is like the crisp, clean feel of the apple's skin, thin, and these are all good words. But when it goes from being a little, my wife loves purple prose, and I'm explaining that it's not that I dislike it. It's just knowing when to use it correctly or the amount, because when everything is purple prose, nothing is purple prose. When it is a chore to read and the story or the tale or the whatever hasn't moved forward because it's still purple descriptor, it ruins your writing, and it ruins. So you start with passion, you try to build technique, and ultimately, towards when you become more of a veteran at any skill, it goes back to passion, but you just have a refinement in your head, having gone through the highs and lows, that whole middle ground of doubting yourself, like trying something different, getting mad at yourself, saying this isn't good enough. It's like growing up. Ultimately, you reach that certain age of you're just like, I just don't give a shit, I'm going to do it. But you have all these years of experience to do it better off the rip, off the bat, and it's any process. So it's amazing to watch. Like, again, when I'm watching this, I see your line work, but like your line work obviously has gotten better over the years, and it's not that this is bad, but I'm watching you, like, literally, I only tried this again. I literally watch you rewind and try it again, so.
Yeah, I agree for like 95% of what you said. And I want to zoom back in on the bit where you said, over time it becomes passion again. You have this more confidence, so you don't blame yourself for, making it better or worse or that kind of stuff. I don't think I agree with that, because sure, I have a lot more experience now, and I think I'm a lot more comfortable with what I'm doing as an artist, but man, I am insecure. I think that's just part of my handwriting at this point. I always doubt what I'm doing, and I always wonder if what I'm doing is good enough. So I don't...
Let me rephrase it then, so we're onto the same thing. You start drawing you go by feel, you go by instinct, you go by fun, okay? And then there's a next phase of the creative process. Is after that, like, someone comes along and says, hey, that's kind of cool, but you need to grow up a little bit. You need to be more like plan a little bit, whether that comes from you, from external, whatever. So you try to plan a little bit better. You try to like map out a little bit better. And then you go through these highs and lows of that self-doubting process, that anger process. But ultimately, after a period of time, you go back to doing it because it feels good, but your hand is guided by experience. You might still doubt yourself, but you're still this feeling of exploration and joy you had at the beginning all over again, but it's with a more seasoned hand guiding the creation process. The first time you did it, it was just, we've said this in the past, so I'm not going to for anybody else. It's
straight up panic. I don't know what I'm doing.
Well, basically, it's like it's virginal sex. Okay, like the mechanics, and you're throwing everything you got at the wall and see what sticks. And then later, now you're a better lover. You've crafted a skill set. You hopefully. So
yeah, well, that didn't really take long for this to turn turn into an R-rated funny. No.
Well, we've dropped a few F-bombs way off the beginning, so at a certain point, like it's
Yeah.
It is
No, you're. Yeah. Clearing that up, I think. Okay, I can agree for like 99.9% with you now. Thanks. I'm not gonna say you're right because I don't want you to start rubbing your nipples again. But
see, now who made it weird? And we haven't mentioned, folks. Yes, when I am right, I love to be right, and I love to show that I'm right. So
sorry if I'm oversharing, then you just feel free to correct me.
No, I love to go back to my original work. I like to go back to my first book, and I still love. I sometimes wish I wrote like I did with my first book. But even I wrote my first book when I was like, my first published novel was like when I was writing in my late 30s. It didn't get published till I was like after I just turned 40. So even then I had years of writing practice under my belt, but it was like my first published novel. And even like I fixed some things since then, but I still wish I had a little bit of that carefree attitude I had in the beginning. Just go with it and we'll fix it afterwards. Just let the exploration process happen.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah, we'll fix it in post.
I remember, I think this is at least 10 years ago when I finished like one of the first few drafts of Bonds of Blood and Silver, so the book that is now actually, published and it's there. I started that book like 10 years ago, and I remember deciding that I wanted to have a literary agent. I wanted to be represented. I wanted to do this, the traditional way. Spoilers ahead, I did self-publish that book. I still did. I did find a literary agent in the end, but I remember sending out those first handful of query letters, and I would just be like super informal. Hey, person X, I want to query my book, and it's a great book, and it looks a lot like that book, and it was just that sense of fearlessness. Like I'm here, and I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna write you this most informal, friendly letter, and I'm gonna get represented. What was wrong with me?
The idea, I know exactly what you're saying, because I went through very similar type of things. I tried a lot of different ones. Like, I started with, I think I went right to the top. I think I wrote, at the time, I went to the same agent that represents, like, some of the, like, Jim Butcher and things like that, like, right off the bat. It's dumb as shit, and it's...
Oh, yeah. Oh, same.
But,
yeah.
You miss every shot you don't take, kind of thing. And it is a heartbreaking process of rejection. They warn you, but at the same time, it's...
I will say at this point, like understanding the industry much better than I did then, I do kind of want to say thank you to all the literary agents who took the time and effort to say, this is not a good fit, thank you so much, even though it was a form of rejection. I understand now how much work these people have, and how far they went out of their way to tell me, woman, go back and hone your craft a little bit more, please. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, no one wants to be told that they're not, they're not ready yet, and even like in our friendship, there's some times when you have to remove yourself as my friend to be my, an art mentor to me, to say, hey, this is not ready yet. And that sucks and it hurts, but I have to hear it. I don't want to hear it. But like the idea is good, but it's too busy, it's too messy. You threw all the tricks at it, and you just threw stuff at it without thinking it through. And you're right, it sucks. I go back to revision. And eventually I get to a place where I'm happy and I don't want a pat on the head, but I do want, hey, you're this. I feel this is a much stronger product. You're going in the right direction. This is better. So it helps. It gives you that kind of boost. That's any kind of good mentor will do that in that capacity. And you only get better when you meet, resistance. You don't get stronger by lifting lighter weights.
Yeah.
It's.
I mean, if we got better from generating art, then everybody would have done it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But we don't get better from generating art, so we have to do it ourselves, which is A, more fun, and B, just better.
It is. That's the whole point. Like the whole growth cycle is like, 'cause I'm watching this art, like I still see a lot of just beautiful, things that you do in this, and then you build it back. And here's one because I didn't go through any formal process in my beginning years of any kind of art. I just you like any other person, you just learn by doing, and then you learn all the wrong habits. But when I watch a lot of artists, yourself included, to this day, it still baffles me when I see somebody has their line work and they just do this blobby color swash over the entire canvas, digital or real, and then clean it up. Then they go back in, they add the shadows and shapes, and they start defining it, realizing like, this brown, this like let's use the entire light brown like blob of watercolor kind of like smattering all over the place. Well, because this jacket's going to be brown and the background has a light brown because they're going to be in a similar color palette and when the product's done, like still baffles my brain. Like, no, like I still like, I do it almost like it's a tattoo because I just draw within the lines that I created and then hopefully you blend it later. And those don't necessarily work with, large form art like this. Like you can't do the same tricks do not translate. When I was doing a tattoo apprenticeship, you can't do that kind of art. You have to work within the lines that you created, the coloring book style.
So help me out here because I'm obviously not a tattoo artist. Like I have a tattoo on my back, but I was not able to see what this guy was doing because I was, my head was turned the other way. But so even when you have this like super shaded image as a tattoo, you still start with line work, or like they never?
Oh, 100%. So, okay. I never finished my apprenticeships, and I am not a licensed tattooist, so I will say that. But I love tattooing. It was a passion of mine for a long time. I never got to finish my apprenticeship, but I still respect the craft through and through. So anybody who's listening is a tattooist, they can back me up on this. But 90% of the time, because there are some people who do watercolor tattoos without any line work, without any like outline. Those do exist. A few of them do exist out there. And most old head tattooers will tell you don't do that because it just fades over time and becomes a blob. So once you create your line work, you're solid, steady, even you have consistent line work, heavy, like that is your frame, because no matter what happens to that tattoo, as long as you have a solid black outline with a consistent line weight, the skin will stretch, this or that, the colors will fade and go, but there you will always see the picture. The picture will always be there. So you start with that. And I use the word coloring book, not in a rudimentary kind of like, not in a negative kind of way, but
that's where my brain was going too. Like it just sounds like coloring book.
But an extremely, it's an extremely, it's an easy to understand process. Once you create the outline, then you can color inside the lines, but you use base colors. And then you always go from light to dark because you can't go from dark to light. Once it's black, you can't put white on top of it because the skin doesn't work that way. So you go from the lightest and you work dark, and you use your primary colors, create your blank, and then shade. So when you do the line work like that, you're creating this, you create the image, like I was saying, but there are a lot of tips and tricks that a lot more professionals have that will, they can work. Well, again, once you know the rules, you can break the rules. And so now you're establishing the framework, the colors, and then you work inside the lines like that. And sometimes the type of needle you use, because there's shading needles, there's liner needles, all that type of stuff. So to watch, you can't just throw color out there and fix it after the fact. Now you can go in a little bit after everything's said and done and like create it like a, color around the line work of the tattoo, and like, there's, again, watch some tattooing shows, watch some of this stuff. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And it's an amazing process, but because you're really good at that skill set, you understand that skill set, doesn't mean it necessarily translate to, this type of skill set that you're working on here. You can create the shadow and shade before and then line after the fact. So
yeah, I was just thinking like this is the complete reverse, because I start with the dark, and we've sort of joked about this before, like, Mistress of Darkness thing. Like I always start in the darkest part and I work my way towards the light, and that's the complete opposite of what you just told me.
It's weird because, like, again, like, as a kid, I always learned by doing, but I learned by watching. So every time there was like a draw comics the Marvel way VHS, like, or tape or DVD or whatever you could find, you watch artists how they draw, and it was always the same thing. We start with our sketch, cool. Then we got our sketch gets better, cool. Then we immediately go to the black outlines, and then it goes into the coloring inside of them. Okay, cool. Then you create the backgrounds. You can create a separate layer, but you draw the background around them. But it was that same process that I understood that translated over to the tattooing world. But so when I see modern, like the digital age revolutionized everything, because now I'm watching, like, I was watching an Eric Canetti video the other day, and like watching his rough line work, and then he just did exactly what you're doing right here. Blob the color on and sketch it in and clean it up, and it makes it look good because it's a digital age world where you can do this. And it breaks I'm trying to unlearn like all like decades of training that says don't do it this way, and I'm like,
but then again, who is telling you to not do it that way? Like, why shouldn't you?
Well, because, okay, so when I feel, because again, I'm not an illustrator. I like to draw, but I'm not an illustrator, not in the way that you are.
Also, for the audience, he is completely modest here. Like, I've seen his doodles, but they are actually really cool. So he can draw.
Oh, I have fun doodles, but again, I would never put any of my doodles on the cover of a book or something like that. I feel more confident, like, what I'm doing, like, when my composite style artwork or building up from a shadow to a real thing, I like to build that way. It doesn't matter. But who's telling me? I'm telling me, because my illustrating never really grew. Now, granted, I don't sit around for hours and practice the way I do on other types of art or my writing. You know, like illustrating is my least developed skill. But it feels like it was one of those things. Like I did it for years and years and years and years. It just never felt like it progressed to an area I was happy with, and lack of education, lack of training, lack of listening to somebody else. Always trying to do it my way instead of just shutting the fuck up, listening to a mentor, trying the way they said it to begin with, learning their pattern, and then go, okay, now that I understand these rules, how do I apply that to what I want to do?
I have an opinion about this, though, if I may interrupt you for like a quick second. Because I went to art school for 4 years, and all I did there was fight and argue with the teachers because they were trying to force me into a mold. This is art. And I said, but I don't want to make that. And so for 4 years, I've only learned how I do not want to partake into the art world. And I think 10 years after that, I realized what I did want to do. So when I hear you say, like, I want someone to tell me how to do it and I have to shut up and listen to, mentors that are telling me, like, try it this way, try it that way, I don't know, man. I have this sort of, I'm torn in both directions because I understand what you're saying when you're like, you want someone to sort of not necessarily take you by the hand, but say, hey, I see you struggle with this, try it this way. This works much better. I understand that, and that sort of brings comfort to your working process. But at the same time, I don't think there is anything wrong with fucking around and finding it out all by yourself.
Sure.
In fact, I think you learn much better and much more efficiently by kind of learning it the hard way.
I hear what you're saying, and I'm going to do a respectful disagree as well. And I'll say it in such capacity. You went to art school, so you can't divorce yourself from that. You already went through the training. Like, whether you fought or not, it doesn't matter. Like, it is 4 years, I'm assuming, of looking at, understanding, being taught, style. Even if you're fighting, that's not the point. You are being, it's like being dumped into a foreign country and saying, learn to speak. Even if you're fighting it the entire time, you are, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposed? No, there's another word for when you,
No, I think exposed is you're constantly surrounded and confronted by.
Yeah, but then exposed, but there's another word is like, there's a term they use for language where they just dump you into a place and like, it's, it doesn't matter. It'll come to me later because I'm old. You're learning by being like enveloped in this entire process. Again, like my years in the military, we'll take a raw lump of human being and say, you're going to learn to do it the right way. Here is what decades of training and understanding has developed. But if you find a better way of doing it, identify it, test it, and let us know, and then we will adapt it into our new way of doing things forward. If you can show a better way, prove it. And
but that doesn't happen
right.
in art school. If you think you found a better way to do something, they're like, no.
But what I'm saying, 100%. So, but I mean, I think what I'm saying is, I'm explaining my brain, my thought process. We go through this. Here's what we teach you, what we know. Use what we know, but then fuck around and find out a little bit safely. And if you find something that works, show us. And it's the same thing I learned in martial arts. Like Jeet Kune Do was like, it's about blending all the styles together to find the best style for you. You have to understand the basics of all these other martial arts before you can actually just create your own. Because if I'm 6 feet tall and 200 pounds, I'm not going to kick and punch the way a 5-foot person or a 7-foot person is going to, because we just built differently. You can't expect you can't create the exact same outcome because everybody's built differently, thinks differently, moves differently. So you have to do what's best for you. And it's the same thing with like the art world. You get taught the same things. Here are the basics. Here are the understandings. Here's color theory. Here is line work. Here's how you study from reference model. Here's impressionism. Here's realism. Here's cubism. Here's every blah, 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 blah. And then now you say, now that you have all the knowledge and you're so dangerous now you can actually hurt somebody with it. Go forth.
Yeah, I think it's just that at the time it didn't feel that way. Like I've had so many of these teen kids, whenever I was at a convention and there's like this proud mom says, hey, look, this is my kid, she can draw too, wants to go to art academy. And like the first thing that comes to my mind is don't do it. And I also understand at the same time that's like I'm not in a position to make any sort of decision on that. But I do kind of want to warn them, like, sure, you're being dumped with all these art styles and all different art history and understanding and thought process and techniques and color theory and everything you just named. But at the same time, I do feel that these kids need to be prepared for the endless amount of arguing about what you want to do, because most of these kids, most teenagers who go to art school these days feel like they know exactly what they want to do. They go to art school because this is what they want to make. They have found out anime, because most people start there anyway. They found anime, they found a certain style, a cartoon, it's something that they really love that, and they want to pour their hearts and soul into that, and so they go to art school so that they can do this professionally. Like the view of their future is still so sort of far away from how reality is going to shape itself out. So I kind of feel like I want to warn these kids, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I mean, you do get a certain basis, I get that, but are you ready for that?
Everything you're saying is 100% true. I agree with everything you're saying. I have a son, he's 14, and he got accepted. He's in his high school is an art magnet high school, and he's fighting right now constantly. His discipline being computer game and animation kind of stuff, game development and animation, and he's being destroyed by his upperclassmen because the teacher lets a lot of the upperclassmen do a lot of the grading, which I don't approve of. But that's neither here nor there. So these upperclassmen are doing just that, but they are, unfortunately, they're doing it in that kind of like what you just said, but in a way that is like they don't understand what it's like. So okay.
The kid is going to suffer now, but when he grows older, he's going to be so happy that he went through this. Yeah.
Well, you're going to suffer regardless. I can try to spare my kid, or I have to let him go through these processes. Like, when I took martial arts, I was a student. When I taught martial arts, I was an instructor. But then years later, like I thought, okay, I've been on both sides of the coin. I get it. But then when I was in the military years, my first part of the military years, I was a learner and I was a worker. But the back half of my military year, I was a senior enlisted. I was a senior NCO. I was a master sergeant. I trained the next generation. I trained the people below me who trained them. I had a much different look at how this process works. And you can tell a kid you're blue in the face. Sometimes you just have to touch the stove to understand that it is hot. I can tell you that it's hot. I can tell you that it's going to burn. And sometimes you just have to touch it so you actually understand what a hot stove means. And that's part of the process. Now I can try to ease the pain. I can be there with like a burn cream ready to go, but you have to go through these certain amount of these processes. You have to understand, like, you have to go through, and you can fight, you can rail like that, but you're going to become better for it. You can't, the problem we have as seasoned adults in whatever capacity is, I'm looking at the next generation. I'm looking at those who don't understand yet. And trying to put my context, my experience into their head. And I can't, and you never will. You can scare them, and you can scare them badly and say, "Oh no, art school's horrible." I've seen a lot of YouTubers say that, and I think that's just respectfully. I'm not saying it to you, but I've seen some of these YouTubers who say something very similar, like, "You can get everything you need from YouTube," and I understand. If you give the context, you probably might come out and not be an artist. That is a big thing. That said, dude, go fuck yourself. Like, this is you can't have this. This is such an opportunity to like be exposed to things that you don't get in other ways, and meet people and collaborate and understand. Yes, you can learn the skills from YouTube, but there's a spirit. There is there are these fundamentals, these intangible connections that are created.
Yeah, but exactly. Like also the fact that your fellow students are going through the same process. I mean, by this whole definition, you could do primary school on YouTube. Is that really what we want?
No, and that's kind of my point. The COVID era kind of fucked a lot of kids that capacity.
Oh, like, yeah.
There is always going to be this social conditioning. Like, you may not like people. I get that. You could be an introvert. I get that 100%. But there's a level of social conditioning. So when you do find the one or two people that matter in your life and you can work off, like, I don't like people. Yeah, I don't like people as a whole. Like I like an individual. You and I are friends, but I don't like people. And I because people piss me off. But like, you're one of the few people that I'm like, okay, I want to show something to you. What do you think? Because I value your opinion. Because you're going to be very honest with me, and you're a great teacher. Like, hey, this is good, or like if it's good, you go, oh, sir. If you don't like, you go, wah. But then like. But you also like take the time to say, here's why I think it's good, or here's why I don't like it. And like, I see what you think you're trying here. Have you tried this or this? You do exactly what I said in the beginning as a teacher.
You'd almost think that I've been a teacher for 10 years, right?
Right. But so it is, I'm pro education and art school and training and things like that. But yes, you want to give context to people to understand like how do you become better at it? You fucking practice. And if you're not going to practice on your own, like, drawing in your room all day is great. Cool. Fantastic. And you're going to get better. Cool. And I look at a lot of people's art, and I can see like, man, this is technically perfect. And it's boring as shit because it feels soulless. It feels stiff. It's too perfect and there's no heart to it.
And let me interrupt you really quickly. You said you can sit in your room and draw all day and you'll get better. I disagree. If you sit in your room all day and you draw, you will reach a point fairly quickly where you don't get better anymore. You need that external input to actually push you into the zone of discomfort, and then you get better.
Which goes back to what I was saying before, but when I was teaching myself to draw my illustration, like I reached a plateau. What I meant to say was like, yes, you can like watch YouTube tutorials and push and try these other things, but it's you need to understand there's something more, and it's the same thing in the writing world. Nothing irks me more when like, I like blank, so I'm going to recreate blank. I love Buffy, so I'm going to write a book that's kind of like Buffy. Cool. You're just copying. You're not creating, and you're doing your version of Buffy, but it's just Buffy.
And it might be good exercise, to actually hone those skills, but it might not be product ready.
It is good exercise, but that is something that has always irked me. Like it's, I don't want to be the next blank. I want to be the first me, but obviously I have influences.
I think it's a blade that cuts both ways though, because, when people do this, like when people do push a not ready product, this is just the way I'm going to say it, like a not ready product into the market. They're going to try to sell it commercially. They have practice. They feel like they've written a good story, even though it's their version of X, Y, or Z. I mean, we might disagree with that and say, hey, you or your product are not ready yet. But at the same time, this is how people grow. By putting something, even by putting something on the market that might not ready yet, they learn from this experience.
Yeah, you take your lumps. It is. I love my first book, and most people seem to like my first book, but I don't focus on the 4 and 5 star reviews. I focus on the 3 and below reviews, because those are the ones where I'm getting my I'm not gonna say honest feedback, but it is like the most hurtful ones, the ones who do not care about my feelings, and they're just being like what they think about the story and my pacing and my whatever. And I go for like the next book, I'll think about that a little bit and try to like write it better, or try to like, what do I understand? What don't I understand? What is, and then, if you care about anything that you do, you try to get better. So when I watch a show, I'm looking at the pacing of plotting of a story. The same thing when reading a book. I'm trying, what would I do differently? And it's really hard to actually sit and enjoy anything anymore.
Because everything turns into work. Hey, let me ask you this. When you look at you as an author, and let's say, so Technomancer was 2016. You wrote a book before that. So, okay, compare yourself to you 10 years ago. What is the thing about you and your creative process that changed the most over time?
I understand theme better than I ever did before, because knowing that when you realize that there's only so many like stories you can possibly tell, there's only like 4 to 8 story types, and obviously like having a central theme is going to help you more than you realize, and as long as you work around that thing. I'm not saying like plot is plot and story developments are story developments and cool scenes are cool scenes and sad things, but if you have a theme like from the very beginning, like because a Technomancer, when I like, fun fact, when I was writing that one, I went through several drafts before I ever got to focus on what the theme actually was of that, because I was trying to write this one way, and it was very edgy, very John Wick, very blah blah blah, and it just didn't feel right. I tried a certain way, and it just came across too saccharine, too sappy, too overly dramatic, too melodramatic, and I just didn't like that either. So I learned then, and I've gotten better at it over time. The easiest way to write is to find something that matters to you. I know that sounds simple, but stick with me. Is to find a true emotion inside of you that you can express. So for me, it was not just depression, but isolation. When I was stationed up in Alaska, I had just made E5, so I became a sergeant. I was living by myself in my first apartment by myself. I lived with roommates in the past, but this was my apartment, no one else, 2-bedroom to myself. Most of my peers, I was now one rank above them in age-wise. So I didn't have a lot of like friends that I was allowed to be friends with. I'm now their boss. So I lived alone. It's Alaska. It's dark. It's because it's winter. I got there in February. Yeah, well, ish. But so I was like, and I went through what I called my frozen crucible, because it was cold, dark, and depressing for a very long time. And depression is, needless to say, was very bad. So this feel of isolation, this cabin fever. Every day I went to work, I saw people, I talked to people, but every time I come home, it felt like it was just a facade. It was fake. I feel so alone all the time. And art saved me. Art and writing saved me. So when I was working on Technomancer, I put away the edginess, I put away the coolness. I said, focused on no man as an island. I tried to pretend I was fine being alone, and that was a lie to myself, because I was 25 at the time. And it was the truth. So when I'm writing Salem's character, I'm taking that part of element of my life where it's, what does it feel like to feel alone, but you don't want to be? You say you're okay with it, but it's a lie. You know it's a lie. So Salem, being who he is, he's alone. He says it's okay to be alone, even his age of he knows he's living that lie. And as allowing him to care again, but then being the author, because I love dramatic, I love tragic heroes. Every time he starts to care, I hit him as hard as I can. And there's but that's what people who read that first couple of books, they lock in on the rawness. Like, the writing style I've gotten better at. You get better at your transitions, you get better at your scenes, you get better at your dialogue, you get better at your dialogue tech. That's all mechanics. As long as you have a core foundation of what the theme and feeling is you're trying to get across, then the rest is just practice. And that is something I've learned over the years. Like that is, stay true to that and just work on the actual writing craft, and you will tell a better story that way.
That actually sounds really profound.
Oh, I'm good like that because I'm old.
You got this. This is ancient wisdom. Everybody should just take this in. This comes from an old man who knows what the hell he's talking about.
Well, the thing is, also keep in mind, like I said, that first book came out, I wrote the different versions of it in my mid to late 30s. I think I first started my idea from that 2008. Because one of my friends at work said something like, Gibby, you like to write me a story that's about, magic and heaven and hell and Cthulhu and cyberpunk. And I'm like, that sounds stupid. Hold my beer. And because I've been working on this idea for a while, and he gave me a framework, but then I also took my religion. So I used, what if I took it after the biblical apocalypse and I started creating this? But so I had written in the past, and I loved to write stuff, and that was cool. But by the time actually went through all the revisions and got published, I'm 40 at this point. So I had a little bit more miles under my feet. So I wasn't a 20-something you're writing this story, in a 20-something's way of
You weren't young and fearless anymore.
Well, it's also my worldview had changed from my stepdad's mean to me. I was an abused kid. Those are true facts, but but my worldview had moved beyond that. It's yeah, and then what? So you're not alone in that. And not to take away someone's pain or punishment, but the world's full of that. So what else are you bringing to the table besides your anger? Have you ever had to make a really hard choice and compromise?
I think those experiences become a means to an end rather than a purpose. And I think that's when you really grow as an adult. Yeah. And
bringing those truisms, any writing person I talk to all the time is I give them a couple pieces of advice when they're asked, how do you become a writer? Well, start writing. But two, when you're thinking about your characters, always, if you ever get stuck, take something very personal from your life. Don't do it one for one, but take something from your life that is it's one of you're one of your heart's 10 commandments. It's written inside of you, and use that as a theme, as a feeling, as a focus, and it'll make your writing that much truer. And then two, I have this thing I usually refer to as, I call it The Rock without the muscles. Obviously, we know the professional wrestler turned actor, The Rock, and he's charismatic, he's muscular, he's big, he's done all these action movies, great. If you took away all his muscles, is he still cool? if he is like, yes, he can still talk, he's that personality, but is that personality built on
Oh
being
man,
like,
this reminds me of the is it SNL video of Jason Momoa who comes home and he takes off the wig and he takes off the muscle suit and he's like this skinny weird.
I haven't seen that, but that's a perfect
Oh
example.
my god, I will send you the video. when we're done.
Fantastic. But when it comes to the writing world, if you take away your characters, big hair, their muscles, their superpowers, are they still compelling? Are they compelling? And if they're not, then go back to the drawing board. Because if all they have, if it's just the Green Lantern ring, if it's just their Hulk strength, if it's just the whatever, if it's Thor's hammer, then if they're not a compelling character, then start over. And that's it hurts. It hurts to hear that, but that.
No, but it's very
true.
true, and I think this is the kind of mirror that sometimes people struggle, holding up to themselves. So. It's good to hear someone else say that every once in a while.
And I'm sure it's the same thing in the art world. When you look at you're looking at your own art right now, what would you tell, what was this from 6 years ago? 7 years ago?
No, this is 2020, I think.
Oh, so okay, 6 years ago.
This is Singularian, yeah.
Yeah, so it's 6 years ago. What would you tell 6 years ago, Sandy? The 6 years of consistent practice, because that's not like you just draw a little bit. You draw constantly. You are constantly creating artwork.
Dude, yeah, and the time of the Singularian was even, I think it was more intensive than I work now. I try to push out an illustration per week, and the time of the Singularian was 2 or 3 illustrations per week. And the funny thing is that, looking back, I think that pushed me forward as much as it held me back, because I didn't have more time to push into this illustration. So what you see is literally the amount of time I could afford, to tune this. But now I take a little bit more time to bring stuff to quote unquote perfection. And you see that the quality of my illustrations now has become different because of that. So, what I would tell myself now is, don't push yourself for the sake of time, push yourself for the sake of getting better. And I think back then, I was just not focused at all on getting better. I was just focused on, producing because I wanted that product to be done and I wanted to grow as an artist. I wanted the platform. I was my mind was stuck on all the things that you really shouldn't bother yourself with. It was really, I was trying to start my company, my small business back then. And I think looking back, I didn't do anything wrong. I think I didn't do it completely because I didn't allow myself the time. It was just, most of it was rushed, and I kind of feel bad that I let myself do that for such a long period of time.
Well, dude, I'm a fan of your art and have been for years, and it's one we all look at, I don't know about you. I'll speak for myself. Sometimes I'll read someone else's work and I'm like, damn it, I'll look at their artwork. I'm blown away. I'm impressed. How do I get to that level? But that's a world that's I'm kind of in, I'm kind of not, I look at for example, you sent me the cover stuff you did. Yes, I should have, I'll be very, the cover you were working on, you sent me that image, and I didn't give you your prop because I was busy at the time, and I was saying, hey, it looks cool. I was texting on my phone and I'm trying to express it. So now that I'm talking to you, I want to say it was really good. I am once again blown away. And not just impressed, but angry at how it seems effortless for you. And here's it. You might have sweated, you might have not, but in my mind it was and I'm done. I'm like, motherfucker, I'm over here on revision 92 of whatever the hell. And so it is. It was especially right after you had praised my Technomancer coverage. These are really strong, cool. And then oh, by the way, check out Hold My Beer. I'm like, you did. It's just
I can do you one better. Yeah. Sorry, I did not mean to push it in your face like that, but you know what?
No, but I'm saying that in the most loving, as a fan, as a friend, as a kind of way.
I appreciate that.
So when I'm looking at someone else's, the writing style, I'm like, damn it, that is a really cool trick. That's a good turn of phrase. That's a good way to to shape this thing, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, that's the area I can still grow as my best growth potential kind of thing. Do you ever get like that? Do you ever look at someone else
Oh, all the time. Oh, dude, all the time. I mentioned Annie Steg in one of the previous episodes. I'm probably butchering her name because I'm pronouncing it like the Dutch way. It's probably Annie Steg or Stieg, or I don't know, whatever. Whenever I see work from her, I'm like, oh my God, how? And the same, I am surrounded by artists who I consider to be so much better than I am. I have this fairly quickly. Like I can see someone's work, and I'm like, why can't I do that? And I probably could. I don't know. I'm constantly intimidated by people in a good way, but it's a feeling of intimidation nonetheless, even by you sometimes.
Oh well, good. Yeah, take that.
Yeah, I mean, there you go. No, I mean when you came back with those super clean stickers for Technomancer, I was like, oh my dude, what the?
And
wow.
I stumbled into that because, and again, that's the like I had this very clear vision of what I wanted to do, and that vision turned out very wrong when it translated into the digital format. So I was in the FAFO thing, like let's do this. Like, the next thing I know is I saw this image kind of take shape by accident, like and it's like having a dream, and you don't want to wake up too soon because you want to remember the dream. Like, okay, don't scare it away, kids. Don't scare the deer. Just move very slowly and get towards this thing. Like, and that's how when I'm onto something, like I feel like, oh, I'm onto something. So
yeah, and I mean, and this literally what I had with the cover that I showed you the other day is like I felt like I was onto something. I was given a very concise brief on what this author wanted. I got like 2 comparison titles, and I just looked at them. I was like, you know what? I can do something with it. I have no clue what the book is about. I just went with what she gave me and what she told me, and it worked out. So it was. I'm going to say this in English, but it's going to be like a literal translation of what we say in Dutch. But it was taking a grab without putting on any pressure. There you go.
That note, that's the best way to end it. Your art is as good as you don't need to push to poop. So
exactly. All right. So with that wisdom, I think we have reached the point where we are going to ask our question to the audience.
Go ahead, ask the question.
What should we ask them?
Oh, don't ask me.
Well, yes, I always ask you. I mean,
what do you feel about your art, your growth? Not just say in art, but like in any real thing. Obviously this is it's kind of a no shit. You start as a rookie, you become a veteran, and blah blah blah. But like where something deeper than that.
Maybe ask what I literally ask you. Like, what do you think is the biggest difference? Yeah, if you compare yourself to the start of your journey to where you are now, what is the biggest difference in your creative process? I think that would be a good question.
Yeah, I like that. So ask that. Go ahead.
Nice. There's the question. And if you enjoyed the episode, regardless of whether you watch it on YouTube or maybe you even listen to it on Spotify, be sure to like it and subscribe to the channel or follow us on Spotify.
Leave comments. Engage. Yeah.
Leave comments. Yes. Tickle that algorithm because we want to be so famous. But in any case, thank you all so much for watching. If you're still around, if you're not around, we'll go ahead and fuck off. No, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And Gib, as always, thank you so much for joining me.
My pleasure, dude. Anytime.
Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.